you filthy swines! Get in here, sit down. We're going to do this. We're going to read some news. As Jesus is the man of the day, I thought it would be a good thing to take a turn towards some things that are relevant to his resurrection. And so this article on the Daily Mail, written by Stacey Liberator, Shroud of Turin discovery places burial cloth at time of Jesus' death. The Shroud of Turin is widely considered to be the most studied, debated, and controversial relics in human history. The 14-foot linen cloth showing photographic negative image of a crucified man is claimed by many to be Jesus' burial cloth, while skeptics hold it is a medieval forgery. Now, a biblical scholar has highlighted a previous analysis of the shroud that places it in the same season as Jesus was said to have died on the cross. Speaking on the Sean Ryan Show, Dr. Jeremiah Johnston highlighted a 1970s forensic analysis of the cloth that identified 58 different types of pollen. He said that 38 of them were identified as species associated with the Jerusalem region, many of which bloom in spring around Passover. Pollen from the Middle Eastern plant species was found in the dust samples, Johnston told the Daily Mail. Among them were plants that only grow in southern Israel, western Jordan, and the Sinai. Dust from the feet area of the shroud contained a specific calcium carbonate from the Tavatine aragonite limestone, similar to dust taken from a tomb in Jerusalem. He said that the remaining pollen species traced the shroud's documented journey over the past 2,000 years, suggesting it originated in Jerusalem before traveling through Europe to its current home in Italy. We know Jesus is crucified. It's best established fact of the ancient world on April 3rd, AD 33, Johnston told the podcast host Sean Ryan. The date of the crucifixion is based on Bible accounts stating that Jesus died during Passover and that the following day was the Sabbath or Saturday, because historical records show that Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor who sentenced Jesus to death, ruled Judea from AD 26 to AD 36. Scholars examined those years. They found that Passover fell on a Friday only on April 7th AD 30 and April 3rd AD 33. Well, considering Jesus is supposed to be 33 years old, I'd tend to go with the latter, wouldn't you? Now considered the two most likely dates for the crucifixion. Well, he wouldn't have been crucified 3 years before his death, would he? I don't know. The pollen, which only blooms at Passover springtime in Judea, along with the Tavatine limestone on the shroud, leave it beyond all doubt that the Shroud of Turin is authentic. Johnston, who previously published the Jesus Discoveries, 10 historic finds that bring us face to face with Jesus, told the Daily Mail. I believe that based on the evidence because I'm not irrational. Researchers say the pollen evidence suggests the cloth was present in the Jerusalem region during the same time period traditionally associated with the crucifixion. However, skeptics continue to point to earlier radiocarbon testing that dated part of the fabric to between AD 1260 and 1390, centuries after Jesus' death. There's some pictures of pollen there. Johnston, who earned his PhD at Oxford, admitted on the Sean Ryan Show that he was long conditioned to view the cloth as a medieval forgery, a belief rooted in a 1988 study that dated a corner sample of the fabric between AD 1260 and AD 1390. I used to be the biggest skeptic of the shroud, said Johnston. It turns out, when you look at it, the Shroud of Turin is scientific proof of the physical bodily resurrection of Jesus Christ. I believe that based on the evidence in the 102 academic disciplines that have studied over 600,000 research hours in it. So I went from skeptic to believing in it based on science. Johnston discussed the work of forensic scientist Max Frey, who specialized in microscopy and forensic trace analysis and became known for applying adhesive tape sampling techniques to collect microscopic evidence, methods similar to those used in modern crime scene investigations. On November 23, 1973, Fry was permitted to collect sticky tape samples of dust from the shroud's surface. He collected 12 samples, which were later analyzed under a microscope in his Zurich laboratory. The 38 types of pollen were linked to plants typical of desert regions surrounding the Jordan Valley, including species adapted to soils with high salt content found near the Dead Sea. According to biblical accounts, Jesus was crucified near Jerusalem, located roughly 13 miles from the northern edge of the Dead Sea. Many of the pollen types have also identified as microfossils in sediment taken from the Dead Sea and Lake Gennesareth, also known as the Sea of Galilee. Only 17 of the pollen species identified on the cloth are known to grow in France or Italy. Regions associated with the shrouds documented movement through Europe in the later centuries. Some researchers argue this distribution supports the idea that the cloth traveled from the Middle East to Western Europe over time. In a more recent study in 1999 by botanist Avinoam Danin of Hebrew University of Jerusalem reanalyzed the pollen samples and identified a high density of pollen from the thistle Gundalia tournefortii. This species has bloomed in Israel between March and May for thousands of years, aligning with the spring Passover season described in the Bible. Danin also reported evidence of another plant, Zygophalon domo sum, appearing in the floral images visible on the shroud. This species is native to the region and known for its distinctive paired leaflets. According to Danin, Gundalia tournefortii and Zygophalon domo sum coexist in a geographically limited area defined by lines connecting Jerusalem and Hebron in Israel with Madaba and Karak in modern-day Jordan. The identification of a third species, Cistus peticus, through pollen and floral image analysis further narrowed the possible location. This combination of flowers can be found in only one region of the world. Danin stated, the evidence clearly points to a floral grouping from the area surrounding Jerusalem. All this forensic stuff is pretty awesome. But because it's so far back in time and because you can get mixed results with a lot of these sampling, if they sampled it to be only from 1300s, how can we verifiably say that those results were not accurate? We're verifying the season that it was found in, but is there not some way that the results for carbon dating may vary based upon the quality of storing it? Would that affect the decay rate? What's this? The Shroud of Turin discovery. You should brace yourselves. We don't know how long this is, but we'll see.
There's a criminologist by the name of Max Fry, and he takes pollen samples from the shroud. And do you know what he finds out? There are 58 pollens on the shroud. 38 of them are from Jerusalem. They only bloom in springtime during Passover. The rest of the 20 pollens follow the provenance of where the shroud has been for the last 2,000 years.
Are you serious?
Yes, according to Max Fry. So 38 of the 58 pollens on the shroud only bloom in springtime. We know Jesus is crucified. It's the best established fact of the ancient world on April 3rd, AD 33. Sean, if we cannot believe that Jesus was crucified under Roman crucifixion based on the sources and evidence, we shouldn't believe that Caesar crossed the Rubicon in 49 BC. Jesus' death and resurrection is the best evidential fact established from late antiquity, and the evidence bears that out.
Yeah. And also, the likelihood of there being so many hands handling the shroud for the last 2,000 years and the accumulation of matter that is going to vary in radiocarbon dating on the shroud between now and then, coupled with repairing of the fabric with newer materials, which would also affect the carbon dating. How accurate would the carbon dating be in comparison to a forensic analysis of the pollen left as traces on the tunic over those years? I mean, it's almost circumstantial, but it seems as if it might actually hold more weight to a story of its movement from the Middle East to Western Europe, which would be hard to fake. Whereas fudging the carbon dating has lots of different vectors that could potentially invalidate it. So I would like to know more about this carbon dating. But I think this is very interesting. There's a bit of a conflict here with some scientists saying it's more modern and others finding interesting clues that hint that perhaps it is completely legitimate. I mean, one thing that I'm curious about is this, to me, seems like, is this an X-ray image? Is the markings of Jesus on here only visible through some kind of enhanced photography, or is it actually visible with the naked eye? Very interesting. But that is it for now. Thank you for joining me. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you also subscribe. But that is it for now. And the only thing I have left to say is Pigwig out.
Oink, oinkity, snort, snuffle, snuffle, squeak, oink, oink, wee, squeal, snort, snort, oinkity, squeak. Oink, 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 squeak, squeak, wee, 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 snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinky, oink, snort, snort, squeak, oink, 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 wee, wee, wee. squeal, re, snort, oinkity, oinkity, oink, oink, schnuffle, re, squeeze, snort, oink, squeal. Oink, 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 squeeze, squeeze, re, 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 shuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinky, oink, snort, snort, squeal, oink, 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 re, 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 reel. Oink, oinkity, snort, schnuffle, schnuffle, squeal, oinkity, oink, oink, snuffle, re, squeeze, snort, oink, squeal. Oink, 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 squeeze, squeeze, re, 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 shuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinkity, oink, snort, snort, squeal, oink, 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 re, 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 reel. Squeal, squeal. Snort, shuffle, oink, re, squeal, re, snort, oinky, oinkity, oink, 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 snuffle, re, squeeze, snort, oink, squeal, oink, oink, oinkity, squeeze, squeeze, re, 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 snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinky, oink, snort, snort, squeal, oink, 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 re,